Boom. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Break Live. I have a special guest today. She's one of my good friends from back in the day, and she's in human or PR. She's in broadcasting, all kinds of things. She's a storyteller, and her name is Hilarie Houghton. And welcome to the show, Hilarie. And how is your day? How did it start? How are we doing?
Oh my gosh, it's going pretty good because I actually got my coffee because I was like, this is legit a coffee break. This is what we do, right?
Yep, that's what, yeah, for sure.
And the coffee maker is like so convenient working from home. So I have a lot more coffee now.
Okay, yeah. So I drink a ton of coffee now, and I don't know how good that is for me. I've been able to drink a whole pot, so I've smashed a goal, I guess. But anyway, score. Anyway, okay. So we're gonna take about 20 to 30 minutes, and we're gonna get to know you. Different things about you, and so let's dive into that. Just tell me a little bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do. Our viewers and listeners would love to know you and get to know you better.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. And it's been fun to watch some of your other episodes and see and hear and learn from other people. But so I grew up in Western Oklahoma. So we met in Altus. And I may have met you before I met your wife. I don't quite remember the order, but we met out in Western Oklahoma and got to know you guys and separately, which is so fun. And I actually live in Dallas now and grew up in Western Oklahoma, made my way to Oklahoma City, and then eventually to Tulsa and Dallas. And I actually got my degrees in public relations and broadcasting from the University of Central Oklahoma, right there in Edmond. And it's been so cool because I get to use both of my degrees in what I do. I now work in health insurance, which it's whenever you hear that, you go, oh, that sounds like that's amazing. No little girl grows up thinking that that's what she wants to do in life, but it has been so amazing. I am senior manager of our multimedia team, and so I get to basically help them tell stories. We do it through videos and through podcasts like this. We also have a newscast where we tell stories and share the news to our own employees. And it's been such a joy. And if there are a lot of podcast listeners out there, y'all might be interested in our podcast called Blue Promise. And it's a video blog. It's hosted by our president, Dr. Dan McCoy. And you can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts. And it's also on YouTube. So it's a video like this too. So yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. I love podcasts. So everybody go check it out. It's right down there at the bottom, Blue Promise. Yeah. So what are some things that you're passionate about? What kind of drives you? What's up with that?
Well, I love this question. I right now am actually the past 3 or 4 years have been really passionate about authenticity. And it kind of goes along a little bit. The more I think about it, sometimes it reminds me of Brene Brown and kind of some of the messages that she's sending to people, which can be really powerful. But the idea of being vulnerable and authentic with people. And it all came about 3 years ago. My husband and I had a little girl named Hollis, and she actually had a genetic disorder. We were both carriers of a condition, and we didn't know it. It was too rare. You would never test for it in a million years. And it was fatal. And so she lived about 6 days. And it was my first real experience with grief. And so I kind of didn't know what to do with myself, with my grief and my emotions. And I had no other way to communicate to people except by being real. There was no hiding it. And it took me about 9 months or so to be able to really be able to articulate myself. But once I started to articulate myself, I wanted to share her story and find joy in the process of grieving. And so I started blogging, and I do a video blog called Joy, Grief, and Authenticity. And it has been really healing, really therapeutic for me. And then I get to hear other people's experiences, which is just so powerful. And so, yeah, that's kind of my passion right now is being authentic and bringing your full self to wherever you are. Yeah, so that's that.
Okay, so that's I mean, I've seen your vlog. I'm actually a subscriber. So everyone go and subscribe to that vlog. Really good stuff on there. And that's bringing your full self to work. How do you actually incorporate, authenticity into your career? How can someone bring that and bring their full self to work? How does that work?
Yeah, that is such a good question. The reality was in my situation, and some other people I'm sure can relate to this. You don't really have a lot of choice if you're walking in grief or not, right? Like none of us really chooses that option. And for me, the reality was I had to go back to work. I actually had the privilege of having the ability to be on maternity leave for a little while. But you can imagine my husband went back to work immediately because there wasn't a lot of options. You get a week or so off and then you got to go back to work. And you can't leave your grief at home. It follows you wherever you go. I wished I could leave it in the parking garage some days. I remember sitting in my car in the parking garage and being like, man, I wish I could just leave it right here and walk in that door and not think about the reality of my life. And, but whether you like it or not, it comes with you. And it can be hard to concentrate and be productive. And that's why I think it's so important for employers to acknowledge bereavement and to acknowledge the mental health and the well-being of their employees. But I walked in the door and my colleagues were so cool. Justin, they literally just came to me, my colleague, and now I report to him, my boss, Ross. He said, we talked about all these things we could do to help you when you got here. And we didn't know what to do. Should we say something? Should we not say something? Should we frame a photo of Hollis and put it on your desk? Like, we didn't know what to do. So we just thought we would ask you, what do you want to do? And it was so powerful for them to just give me the option to decide whether or not it was helpful for me to talk about her or not talk about her. And so I chose I said, yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate you not ignoring the elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. and honoring her in that way. Like it felt special that they would honor her by speaking her name and talking about her. So I felt really seen. And by being seen, I felt it's honestly like I could kind of leave my grief a little bit and I could step away from it and I could focus on my work. Mm-hmm. I could concentrate because I had been seen. And then it really helped me develop a lot of empathy for other people at work. And so that's kind of where I really started thinking about, man, what if we could all bring our full selves to work? What if we could all really contribute in a way that is powerful, human to human? And yeah, you want to be professional, right? Mm-hmm. But there's also a little bit of vulnerability that makes work a little bit easier whenever you're honest with each other. And so it really allowed me to start deepening my relationships with my colleagues. And if you think about it, for all of those employers out there and supervisors and managers and leaders of companies, this could make your employees, if they've got better relationships with each other, they're now closer, they're more committed to your organization. And there's job retention there from an HR perspective because they've got closer ties. And by having stronger relationships with each other, they're less likely to want to leave the company at all. That's something that has really resonated for me. Sometimes employers need to hear some powerful messages around the value that something brings to a company. And if you think about it too, like if you're able to to cry together. And I'm not saying crying is always appropriate at work, but if you can experience great pain together, you can also experience great joy together. And it makes your laughter even more powerful. And because you've seen the depth of your relationship with each other, but it offers people the ability to collaborate better with each other. The ability to have really difficult conversations. I felt like once I really brought myself to work and I allowed the idea that grief might seep into the workplace. When I walk in the door, I allowed that to help me have harder, more difficult conversations. In healthcare, there's all kinds of things, mental health, infertility, the need for therapy. Those are all very real things that happen in our world that if we can't even talk about it, then we can't help people in those areas. And so I kind of feel like it opened the door for me to be a little bolder and more creative and innovative in the kind of dialogues that we eventually had as a company. I like to feel like I contributed in that way. So.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. So how do you actually, like, what does it mean? Like, if I was to do that, how would I bring my full self to work? Like, how do I do that? I guess I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, how would one do that?
Well, so I have some thoughts on that, and you might too. I'm sure everybody has different thoughts about what that looks like for them as different people. For me, it's about being real, because when you're real, then other people can be real too. Mm-hmm. It's things like not ignoring the elephant in the room, and excuse me, acknowledging everyone has something that they're dealing with. Death, divorce, trauma. They might be going home to experience domestic abuse. They might have financial concerns, depression, addiction. Everybody has something. And if you can tap into those experiences, you can be more productive together. It'll help you get your job done. And the other thing to think about is that you need emotional intelligence. EQ is a real thing. And you guys should look it up. Emotional intelligence is so important. It's about knowing yourself and how are you feeling in that moment. And it sounds pretty basic, but I think we'd be surprised to learn how many times we don't allow ourselves to feel or think certain things. And once you have that emotional intelligence, you can really function better in your own identity. And but also you need to understand your customers' needs. So you need to be able to pull their needs out of them and help them to understand what it is that they need and the situation that they're in. Again, it's about being vulnerable and empathetic. And here are some examples. You and I were talking off camera yesterday about some examples of that. And one of them that came to mind, I'll give you two examples. One that came to mind was selling a house. And you got to know your customer, right? Like, and sometimes it's hard to get people to talk. You're like, what do you want? And they're like, I don't know. But you want to know why they're buying, what's their motive. If you can be a little more genuine and empathetic and show a little bit more of who you are, then it can help them to do the same. And then all of a sudden you find out that maybe they're buying a house because they received divorce papers yesterday, or maybe they're buying a house because their spouse died and they can't handle the idea of living in that home any longer. That's something that comes to mind for me. That's really good, important information about your customer that you need to know. And by you being real, you can, that helps them be real. And then one of the ways that I use it in my job is, we do a lot of filming videos, right? We tell stories. And which, by the way, shout out to Tommy. He's on Facebook with me and he's one of the team members that helps.
Hi, Tommy.
Stories. Hey, Tommy, I'm going to tag you. But whenever we have empathy, and Tommy does a really good job of having empathy for others, then we're better able to conduct an interview in a way that pulls out somebody's authenticity. If we're real with them, and sometimes even sharing your own experience with them first will allow them to then really share their heart with you. And that's where the real story lies, right? Is in somebody's heart and how they're really thinking. So you want them to fully share as much as they're willing to. So that's how I use it at work.
Sweet. Well, and I think that that's kind of a tricky situation too, though, because you got to know that emotional intelligence, you got to know, okay, what you deal with and, and be able to relate to this other person. But then at the same time, once you've made that connection, then it's almost as if you have to kind of detach from that. So, but because we have to get something done, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, there is that aspect of it too. So
Sure.
Definitely something that can be practiced though. I'm sure that everyone throughout their day can practice that, anyway. So, what are some examples of things that people could be dealing with that they don't even realize that they're dealing with,
Yeah.
So that could be carried into the workplace, that, stressors and things like that. What are some examples of that you have?
Yeah. So I read some really good articles over the course of this pandemic that talk a lot about how COVID-19 has brought on a lot of grief. And, you think about grief around associated with death. And so you think COVID-19, people dying, yeah, there are people grieving, but I don't think the average person really recognizes that the grief that they have maybe just from being afraid to, and trauma even, being afraid to touch a doorknob and know that doorknob is safe and it's not going to hurt them, and that they can go out to the other side of that door and they don't have to be worried. That's something that we really took for granted. And now we kind of have to live in that world of like, what's okay and what's not okay. And am I going to be safe? If I leave where I've been staying at home and homeschooling my kids and working from home, am I going to be okay if I go past those boundaries I've created for myself? So there's a lot of issues that people are dealing with around that. And then there's the solitude and the confinement of all of COVID-19 that really brings stress into people's lives. People are losing jobs, financial insecurity. And then you've got all of this racial tension, which is so real and so valid. And boy, that to me is just another reminder of the value of being empathetic, of listening, asking questions, seeking understanding, not making assumptions, and educating ourselves. There's so many things, you could go into there, but it's just another example of ways that people are, they've got a lot going on besides just work, besides just trying to get this letter written or this email out or this house sold. They've got a lot of things to deal with. And those are some of the examples that come to mind right now. There's so many, like I said, everybody's dealing with something, right? You know?
Yeah, no, for sure. I totally get it. I mean, I think everyone can agree with that. Like there's something that everyone's dealing with right now. And there's that underlying tension, just general tension. And then you put into that, someone's actual personal experiences that add on top of that tension, like you said, I lost my job, you know what I'm saying? Like in the end of March, I'm so grateful that I got hired on, at MVP insurance, but it's, that's a stressor, and then you have, can I go anywhere? And when is it actually okay to go places, or is the mask good? Is the mask not, and it's such a, tricky time and so many different things going on. And I mean, I totally get it. But I think you're spot on. I think being real about that stuff, and not, and calling that elephant out that's in the room, just, hey, this is what it is, I think it's really cool that getting down that you had told me yesterday off camera that, getting to, once we get past everything and we get to the genuine conversation, that's when we make change, like how can we get to that point, and then because, if you are trying to buy a house, then it's like, hey, let's figure out what you need, what you want or need, like what's actually, why is this happening, and I can help you get there, so, anyway, so what kind of action could listeners or viewers take, on this topic? What do you think?
Yeah. Well, it kind of goes back to emotional intelligence and really knowing yourself, and knowing what it is that your experiences bring to the table. If you kind of think about the idea that the experiences I've gone through outside of work could bring a lot of value to helping me serve our customers at work. So just remembering that we're all humans. And so you bring something to the table, and not being afraid of who you are and what you're going through. Having empathy for others is a really good one. Listening, asking questions, being real. Just being real and choosing to be, when I say be real, I mean choose to be authentic over being comfortable, because so many times we choose comfort. And sometimes we make the assumption that we know what makes another person comfortable, when in reality, they might be very uncomfortable with avoiding a topic and not being seen. And so just kind of really choosing to be authentic over being comfortable. I think there's a lot of value there. And I always like to say maybe I don't say this as much as I think this. Whenever somebody asks me how I'm doing, I try really hard not to just say, fine.
Yeah.
Because there's so much more there. And if you can respond in a more authentic way, it really opens the door for them to say, man, I know I was in traffic too, and it was crazy, and I just missed my first meeting of the day, And so it just kind of creates a little bit more unity. And then just my final reminder to people would be, you can do all these things, you can be real, but be professional. And I think people get afraid that like they can't be too real or they'll appear unprofessional. You can totally do that. Boundaries should still exist at work. It's a good thing. You don't have to share all your drama, and be cautious, because you actually don't want to create inappropriate relationships in the workplace. You just want to open yourself up enough that you can be more productive and add more value than before. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And so that's what I was talking about earlier too, is like, I mean, we can be vulnerable here and talk about these things, because I totally agree. I think if you're able to, let people know, hey, I am having a hard time right now. I'm just letting you know, and then that way your team knows where you're at, but then you're like, but I mean, I'm not using that as an excuse. I'm just letting you know that's where I'm at, and I still want to get things done, and make it happen. So, I mean, this is all great. I love it. I think that I agree with everything you've said here. I think that that's great. And so towards the end of our show, what we do is we have some random questions that we like to ask our, guests. And so they are truly random. I don't think you've seen them, I hope. No. So we have picked these out, and here we go. Are you ready? We'll do 3 random questions. Okay. We're just going to see how this goes. Okay. Here we go. What are you interested in that most people have never heard of?
Oh, that's a good one. Oh man. What'd you say?
Well, okay, so I was going to say it's not like wallpapering, is it? She's actually an interior designer, so if people, if you need her, just give her a shout and she'll.
So interesting story. I'm going to dodge that question because I don't know the real answer.
Yeah, that's
But
cool.
interesting story in response to your question is this wallpaper behind me is some of that removable wallpaper, so it's like a giant sticker. Really more complicated to install than I realized. So I started doing it all by myself. And I'm thinking, it can't be that hard. It's just like a big sticker. I'll just like roll it down the wall. And it was much harder. I got about halfway done and I was thrilled with myself. And I opened a bottle of champagne thinking like it was time to celebrate. It was a little too soon. I ran out of wallpaper at the end and I had to like hodge things together. So it's really funny. But yeah, if you're ever in Dallas, come see. I'll show you this like amazing wallpaper.
And if that's your style, she can totally help you with that and design it. So there you go. Okay, so here we go. Second question. What is the strangest way you met one of your friends?
Oh, I love this. I have a very clear answer to this.
Okay,
so
cool.
my friend Ashley Hill, I'm going to tag you in this video, Ashley.
Yes.
We worked together at Blue Cross, and the way we came to work together is she actually, I was interviewing her. We were interviewing by phone. It was getting down to the last few people, and she said, I've met somebody from Blue Cross and or somebody whose wife works at Blue Cross, and she's in communications. And in my head, I was thinking, wow, there's like so many communications teams here. Like I wouldn't even begin to know who you're referring to. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. And she goes, yeah, I can't remember his name, and I've been trying to find his card, but he works in light bulbs. And I was like, what? My husband sells light bulbs. And she goes, that's crazy. I met him on a plane. We were going to New Orleans or something like that. And I was like, yeah, but my husband hasn't been to New Orleans recently. Like, she goes, well, I think he had a layover. So he was going to be making his way to somewhere else. And she said, he'd just been to Austin recently. And I was like, we were just in Austin. And she goes, I think it's you. And I was like, I think it is too. And sure enough, I reached out to my husband and he was like, yeah, I can't. And I think he might've even remembered her name, but Ashley Hill. And so we are still friends. And she now works at Ernst & Young. And it's the really funny story though, just that I'm interviewing her and she's already met my husband. It's crazy.
Yeah, wow. Hey, Ashley Hill.
Hey, Ashley Hill.
Okay, so last question. What is your theme song? What is your theme song?
I would have to say, I don't know. I've been on an Evita kick lately, like Eva Peron, like the musical Evita.
Okay.
And the song Rainbow High comes to mind, but I don't remember all the words. So somebody might call me out on that and be like, that's not a good song. I don't remember exactly. But yeah, it's one of those really motivational songs, and just the very word rainbow makes me happy. So
Okay. Fantastic. So where is some so thank you so much for coming on. First off, I so appreciate it. I'm so thankful. Thank you so much for coming on. I really think it's cool. I love your stuff. I love all of this content that we have here. I like your vlog. Do you actually do a blog also, or is it just the vlog?
It's just a video blog. Yeah.
Or video blog. I don't know. I'm just calling it blog. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So where can people learn more about you and what it is you do?
Yes. So me personally, and my Joy, Grief, and Authenticity blog is available on Facebook. You can find me as Hilarie Fite, F-I-T-E, Houghton. And on Instagram at Hilarie Houghton, and Twitter, Hilarie Houghton, kind of all over the place. And YouTube, Hilarie Houghton.
Okay, fantastic. So here we go. YouTube, we got Hilarie Houghton. You can search her on there. Joy, Grief, and Authenticity. Instagram right here. So thank you once again for coming on. If you have any questions, I will post her contact info in the comments of this video. And then that way you can get in touch with her. And if you have any questions or if you want to just view her content and, get some more information on this and bringing your full self to work, it will be there. Thank you so much, Hilarie. We're out of time, but I really appreciate it. And I hope to come down there and see you and see how the pros do it. So anyway, thank you all. And we'll see you later.
Awesome. Bye.